Welcome everyone. Hamatakiapi, Taya Hipi, Chante Washte Nape Chizapi, Guthrie Capicele Manchapilo, Inyawo Slaha o Yahanke He Matahan, Hunkake Keen, Teriwas, Na Peter Capicele, Wichakiab, Unchiwaya Keen, Alfredo Martin, Wichakiab, Rochester Otue Wati. Like Karina said, Happy New Year. It's good. It's good we're all here. I greet you all with a heartfelt handshake. My name is Guthrie Capicella. I'm from the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. I work alongside Karina on Native American and Tribal Nation outreach here at Mayo Clinic. So it's good to be here with you all today for the first Indigenous Health Topics of 2024. Quickly, we will have time for Q&A at the end of the session. Please add all of your questions into the Q&A function, and we'll go over those then. Also, at the end of our time together here, we will send out a link for an informal kind of after chat with Mr. Dearly and us. So please be welcome, or we welcome you to join us there. All right. So today, we have the privilege to listen to Mr. Jerry Dearly talk about the land we belong to, the relationship between our well-being and our culture. I am honored to introduce Jerry Dearly. Mr. Dearly is Oglala Lakota from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. He comes to us by way of St. Paul, Minnesota. Mr. Dearly is a retired educator. He was a mentor of mine while I was directing Indian Ed here locally in Rochester. His passion for youth can be seen across the state of Minnesota as he continues to make connections and impacts with students. And he can be found frequently on powwow trails across the country. Thank you for being here with us. Jerry, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir. It's all yours.
Hihani Master. Yeah, to Guthrie and all the Navajo Nation, along with the monks behind Corina, right? I want to say that much as we begin to think about land and a culture, and we're relating this to the well-being of maybe just us for now, because everything else will revolve around us and will always be lost as our predecessors, our children are still kind of lost because a lot of the teachers don't go out and get the information to teach the children. So I'm saying we ourselves listen to what we can do to our well-being. Currently, I live and reside in, I always like to say this, you already know who I am, so I always like to say I currently reside in a land of 11,837 lakes and 10,000 treatment centers. That's why I've been sober going on my 28th year. And I always introduce myself like that. So that's kind of where a lot of people kind of gets confused what my name is, which is good. Because at the end of one of those workshops, says, thank you, Luke, somebody said. So I started laughing, She didn't know what I was laughing about. But anyway, living in currently Minnesota, which is pronounced Minnesota. And Mini is water. Oshota is misty, cloudy, or foggy. So Mini Oshota. It is a Sioux word. And since the books have been part of our education, a lot of the historians call this area Dakota, or the D-speaking Sioux people. of the Siouan branch of this area. And I come from Pine Ridge, which is the L speaking, which is Lakota branch of the Siouan system. So one of the land parts, I'm going to start from Minnesota, is I got really fascinated about a place called Grand Portage, which is one of the 7 Ojibwe reservations in the state of Minnesota. And it's located on the northeast corner of the state of Minnesota. And when I was going by there, there was a kind of a first time I came to that area. I was asked to MC in Armstrong, Ontario, which is about 250 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. I didn't think anybody lived out there, but that's where I was going. And I'm certainly sure now I know that there are a lot of people have become my friends out there in the White Sand Band of Ojibwe. But I do know that I learned as I was stopped by and I was asking questions about my interest. They said, there is a witching tree. Do you have time? I said, no, I don't. But on my way home, back through here, I will stop. So they gave me a phone number and I did stop. And they took me to what they call the witching tree, or a tree that grows and is still growing out of rock. And which I thought is a very interesting, it's a cultural phenomena. I think it's kind of a spiritual phenomenon for the area because they call it the witching tree. I have no idea. So you can tell when they say witching, there's probably a lot of different ministers that went through there and kind of talked about that. But that's still there. That's one of the places I'd like all of you, if you have time, to go over there and see that area, Grand Portage. And then lately, some of the things that have been happening around this area of in Red Lake, which is directly west of Grand Portage, another reservation, they are going into the buffalo, the raising of buffalo over there. And Sherilyn Spears, who is she had grandchildren for my 2 children for my nephew, so I have 2 grandkids up in Red Lake, and she is the buffalo person up there, the contact in Red Lake. So they are starting a brand new herd of buffalo, and then coming down this way, and where I'm currently located in St. Paul, sort of south of here, southeast of here, there's one of the 4 Dakota communities called Prairie Island, or Tintawita, which is the island, Prairie Island, island on the prairie. They had a buffalo herd that has been going full blast for a long time. It started from a buffalo that was donated by the Pine Ridge Indian people to a powwow, and this powwow committee didn't want it. So the Owens family, who are my adopted relatives, they took the buffalo and they took it back to Prairie Island. And they named this buffalo the Mayo Shooting Star. And a few, weeks after that, they brought a female down there, and that's where that herd developed to this day. And that's another land site that a lot of these local students take their students to see and hear the story of the buffalo, or the Pteoyate, which is all that we had in our area. Now they call it Katchanka, is a modern version, but Pteoyate was the people that they had the buffalo. That's what they were called at one time. So I thought that Paul Dressen is the contact person in Prairie Island. So you can call him and you can set up probably even a place where you could take an entourage of people and he will take you through the history of the buffalo. And I believe Sherilyn is kind of trying to get her buffalo together. I just heard too, maybe this month, that the Shakopee Mdewakanton Dakota community, which is one of the 4 Dakota communities, is now beginning to get into establishing a buffalo herd there. So that's another uh, well-being kind of thing of what is going on in the land as far as I'm concerned. Also, currently, you know that it's really warm here in Minnesota, which is very strange. You know, I can't use my long johns; too hot for that. So I have to put that away for a while. Just, but right now, I'd heard that the maple sugar is beginning to run in the maple trees, so that this is going to be an early maple sugar harvest, from what I heard. Today is February 1. So this month, the maple sugar, if you need to go do any of your teachers or anybody wants to go see the camps, this might be a good time to do that because the sap is running early from what I've heard. But I think normally it was in like the end of February, March, and April is when the maple sugar camps sprung up for how they process maple sugar. And then also there's other camps that I've been involved with, which is wild rice camps. My family, myself, we always welcome, gifts of wild rice because they always, whenever they want me to do something, they always give me some wild rice, and I'm really grateful for that because the wild rice that we have is just normal and it is uh, taken care of at rice camps of the Ojibwe people, and they know how this is done. Now, Prairie Island, just within the last 2 years, have had a beginning of uh, these wild rice camps over there and a beginning of maple sugar camps because they too in this area, that's how they survive. So that might be another contact there in Prairie Island with Paul Dresden, who is the Buffalo teacher. And the other thing that I wanted all of you to kind of really think about, another site would be Pipestone. Now, Pipestone, Minnesota is over by the eastern area of South Dakota and the western edge of Minnesota. And it is a quarry where the pipestone is dug. And this is how the pipestone came to be. And if you ever noticed, I have a pipe, but I had to go Sundance myself in order to take care of that pipe that does not even belong to me, but that pipe belongs to all of you, all the nations of people in that are here on earth. And that's kind of what we're talking about when we look at some of the things we have. Uchima Koche, who is grandmother the earth, that we always make offerings because without her, we would starve to death. That is our spiritual connection with this grandmother, the earth, and also this pipestone quarry. These are the pipes, are sacred spiritual instruments that we use for our ceremonies. And then, as I mentioned before, the 7 Ojibwe reservations and 4 Dakota communities, you may do some research on them. The Internet Education Program with the St. Paul Schools, I wrote a small book as far as what to expect, but I'm not too sure. The Social Studies Department, when I was still there, I gave it to all of them to utilize with their teachers. Now, going back into a real big jump, a giant jump to the Chesapa, or Che, which is hill, Sapa is black, the Black Hills. Now I'm thinking that right away I saw the mountains in Arizona behind our benefactors of this video, and then to Guthrie, who is also from South Dakota, and the Bear Butte is where one of the sacred mountains is around Sturgis, South Dakota, and that's kind of the site where they have all those motorcycle. They all meet over there. I guess the motorcycle people in the world. But 6 miles north of there is Bear Butte, which is our spiritual mountain of the treaty making time of the Treaty of 1868, which they call it the Fort Laramie Treaty, which involved the Arapaho and Northern Cheyenne and the Sioux people. At that time, we didn't know we were Lakota, Dakota, or Nakota. We just were Sioux, the Oyate from there. And that's kind of where the sacred hat and the sacred feathers, the sacred hat and the sacred, let's see, arrows and the sacred pipe were given by a spiritual person. That is why Native people we revere and we know our leaders, which is the women. So I'm really glad that Corinne opened everything else, because in the Lakota way, she is my leader, as my wife is my leader, and my daughters. We need to teach them more so that they can become the leaders of that give the advice that the men need and do not know that. So it's kind of a confusing kind of thing, but our spiritual nature has always been to always remember the moms that taught us how to love and how to care and to who to be compassionate towards. And grandmas taught us that, moms taught us that, and aunties and other women taught us that, how to be better men. So we depended on the women. And here, this pipe that I'm talking about was brought here around 1850, around that time, by a white buffalo calf woman. And this is where this story begins of our how a woman is very prevalent in our culture of the Lakota, for what, where I can only speak for myself. And the other thing is the sweat lodge, which is a part of that, because when we go into the sweat lodge, it means that we are now going back into the womb of Mother the Earth to get okay. And when we come out, that we are now ready to go back out in the world with some of that reborn thoughts of the sweat lodge and our ceremonies as the pipe. And now, looking at, you heard me say Bear Butte, which is north of Sturgis, there's a spiritual mountain which encompasses only one of 7 that I'm aware of. I only remember the Crazy Horse Monument, which is downhill from Gutzon Borglund, the sculptor who put together Mount Rushmore. And Crazy Horse is another monument, is where he fashioned the picture of Crazy Horse on a horse. So that's another site that I'd like you all to kind of think about when you go out there and see what that is a part of the second mountain. And there are other mountains. Another one is in Wyoming, which is it is the one that Devil's Tower, they called it, because the European American people, the way they looked at it, they saw lights all over the Devil's Tower, so they thought that the devil was there and that it's the Tower of the Devil. And yet, the spirit people, they showed themselves at that place, and the name of the mountain never changed. It's still Devil's Tower because that's still the story that is told locally, and that's where we get a lot of the our spiritual needs, like rocks and different things like that, that go into our gourds, are come from that area, and also the other mountain that I can remember is Sturgis and Crazy Horse Monument. There's another one called Phe Shla, and Phe is your head, Shla is bald. So this mountain looks like a mountain with a bald head. So Phe Shla, they called it. So that's another, the fourth mountain, and there's probably around three others that encompass about 500 miles that goes into Wyoming all the way around the Black Hills of South Dakota. And there is a run that goes for 500 miles around that particular area. So a lot of times you sit there and kind of think about that. There's so many different things that around that area of the Black Hills, and also one of the things that I want you to kind of know is in the reservation of there are 8 reservations in South Dakota. One of them is in Eagle Butte. There's a place over there north of Eagle Butte, about 20 miles on the Cheyenne River Reservation. This is where Orville Looking Horse, who is the 19th generation pipe keeper, lives. And he takes care of that pipe that came to us in 1850 by that white buffalo calf woman. And that pipe is still out there. It's still taken care of by the 19th generation of pipe keepers. So that's another spiritual exception, another spiritual place that I'd like you to kind of think of. And every time, even myself as a Lakota, and still Nahachti Lakota wa, but Nahachti wa, but the Waya, Dakua, Awa, but the Won Shila, and war up here, Naha, war, but the na Woyu Hakil, na Wichunku Bikte. That means that whatever it is that I have the good things, whenever I go out to visit that pipe, I make sure I take food, take some money, I take nice star blankets, Pendleton blankets out there, and I gift the pipe keeper so that I can pray or send my voice to the Creator, which my wife and I did when we went inside that where the pipe house was. And it was so nice and beautiful outside, no wind. When you went inside, there was actually looked like I was in the middle of a tornado. It was so windy inside that lodge because that's the most spiritual place I've ever been in my life. And I think that my wife and I are sometime soon, we're going to be probably this spring making our trip out there to once again send our voice there and then to come home again. So that is called place called Greengrass, where that pipe is still out there. Another thing that I forgot to mention was there's a treaty of 1868 that was enacted with the government of the United States of America. And one of the things that happened in one of the sites, lead Deadwood, they found gold. And so here's an example of white man speak with forked tongue. It said there's a road that was built called the Thieves Road that went all the way into Lee Deadwood. And that's where to this day that gold mine is still in existence. And that was a really good classic example of broken treaties that the government did with that area of the Cheyenne and Lakota or the Sioux and the Arapaho nations. They set a treaty called for their Treaty of 1868, and they broke all that. That's why we always say white men speak with a forked tongue, and that's truth too. That's kind of these are some of the things I'm not smart enough to lie about. So I just thought I'd let you know that that's kind of another thing. A lead deadwood. There are some gold mines you might want to go see and some of that history. And one of the things that did happen is another land development would be up in Montana, which is greasy grass or the uh, up in of the Crow Agency, Montana area of the Crow people, where Custer, I like to say Custer, got sued at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, and that's where Custer, Lieutenant Colonel Custer was busted down from rank from being a general, and he wanted to do his ego thing, and he attacked the people, and eventually he didn't quite make it historically. So that's kind of how the Battle of the Little Bighorn began, where Custer got sued. I always like to say that. And so that's kind of like that area of they have a museum there too, from what I haven't seen the museum yet though. And from there also how some of the many sites in the school system, schooling of the Lakota and the Dakota of the state of Minnesota, South Dakota, which is 8 reservations, and on up this way, Holy Rosary Mission, St. Francis Mission in Rosebud, Stevan in Crow Creek, Bishop Hare Mission and Mission South Dakota in Rosebud, and Marty Mission, which is right there in Yankton Sioux Reservation. They were all the missions that were established by the Catholic Church, and that's where we all went to school. I too went to Holy Rosary Mission myself. And from there, the other schools were the Flandre Indian schools, which is in Flandre, South Dakota, which is about 30 miles from Pipestone, Minnesota, and Wapton Indian School in Wapton, North Dakota, and others geographically across the United States. I'm sure that the Guthrie and your colleagues. I know that you're probably uh, aware of some of those schools and Haskell Institute, Haskell Indian Nations University, Treaty Schools, University of Minnesota, Morris, and these are the treaty schools. And a lot of students don't go to school over there, but Penn State, Harvard, these are some of the schools that are also treaty schools, but nobody wants to go to school there. So that's kind of where some of the things that I kind of put together here because I always forget things. And but I'm thinking that currently up to this area, as I've covered some of the many issues that we can look at and how we survived at one time in the well-being of our people, I think I kind of gave you an overall look at what I'm thinking that could be as far as the location of the land and the culture that goes along with this, and that we can kind of think about. And so I guess from all of you, I think that I almost made it to 12:30. So am I okay with time now, Guthrie?
Yes, sir. You can keep going, otherwise we can see if there's questions that they want to go on.
Sure.
I think you're doing really good so far, kind of highlighting both local and then our home base back in the Dakotas. Um, but really kind of leave it up to you if you want to break and pull some folks in, that's possible too.
One of the things that I know is, your colleague there, she's Diné, she's Navajo, and they have a vast history of, if what you were doing here, you did over there. They have so many different land sites too. Like I myself taught eighth grade in elementary school in Shiprock, New Mexico, and I've often wondered, and I was amazed at how huge and big Shiprock is. It looks kind of small from a distance, but if you go right next to it, man, that's probably one of the biggest mountains I've ever been in my life. And the way they live out there is really interesting. But that's for probably another time that you can, your colleague can take you on a trip to the Dene Nation as far as the land and the culture in relation to well-being and how they lived out there. So it's kind of interesting there too. And I know with yourself that you, one of the things I forgot about some of the reservations, like Guthrie, your reservation is Standing Rock, and your home communities. There's so many different communities within each district. So that's kind of what I forgot to say, that one of the things on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation that I forgot to mention was Wounded Knee. In 1890, the 7th Cavalry killed as many people as they could there in 1890, which was another uh, treaty breaking time where they killed an unarmed people there. And they were predecessors. I'm the predecessor from that time, but there are some people that got away. And that was kind of a beginning. And then the second Wounded Knee was in 1973, which is by the American Indian Movement and the American Indian Movement there, and the help that we got from names like Clyde Belcourt, Vernon Belcourt, Dennis Banks, and utilizing a spiritual leader, Crow Dog. When I mention all these names, the Means, Russell Means, Dace Means, Ted Means, all the Means, they are my relatives, but now they're all gone. And all of the ones I mentioned, they're all gone now. So we have to look at the well being of who is going to fight for our people now, as the American Indian Movement and Dennis Banks in this area, Eddie Benet in this area that started schools here. Eddie Benton Red Schoolhouse and part of the Heart of the Earth in Dinkytown at the University of Minnesota area. Those schools are no more anymore. So how are we going to educate our kids? See, that's the other thing. I know we have a lot of programs now, the internet education program here in St. Paul schools locally. How are we going to serve the urban nation of Native kids here? And they're beginning to look at that too, those things, which is really great. But it's kind of tough now because we have to teach our language instead of growing up with the language as our first language and having English as our second language. Now it's reversed now. We grew up with the English language, and then we have to go take several classes in our own language to be able to state and explain our status as our nation of people. And Lakota Wogalaka Kile Ayuptiptia Hechinukum Hena Wanil Ongapi Dona. There's getting to be so few of us natural original speakers, but we still go on, and someday, hopefully, with all these things that are going on, there's some educators out there that are looking at all the issues where they need to concentrate on how we can maintain our culture and the history of indigenous people of this land and other lands, 650 or more nations of people across Indian country. So kind of in that way, I think that for this part, I covered the land issue, and I think the well-being part is myself. I had to reaffirm my taste for buffalo. Actually, I didn't like buffalo even though that was traditional. But today, I like buffalo now because I had to learn how to eat wild rice when I first moved here to Minnesota. And that's kind of how that went. I learned a lot about the maple sugar that we use on pancakes and different things like that. And still, all the food that is maintained here was so well preserved by our own. And in 1492, when the Italian guy got lost and they said he discovered America and he landed in the wrong place, it's kind of interesting how that's the history that's told in the American history books and probably the history sections of school that is going on right now. My grandchildren are over here in Nokomis, and one of them is going to high school right now. And your children, that all of you are listening to this broadcast here, they're all in school. So it's kind of good that hopefully you can bring some of these cultural issues and we can work on the battle I'm always working on against prejudice and racism and issues like that. That I try to do battle with them, but it's kind of hard when you're a retired teacher like me. I don't get out as much, but hopefully, maybe with these kind of broadcasts at the Mayo Clinic and the native staff there that are doing these things on behalf of the people, that we can do better as a people. So kind of in that way, I'm going to say that much I can say for this much, as I was kind of looking at my eagle feather here and how I really felt good about this, bringing this tobacco here and looking at some of the sweet grass I have and some of the chanshasha, that red willows that was processed for the pipe. And I don't use this regular bugler tobacco anymore. I use the naturalness of the red willow to go in the pipe, what we say, and have our ceremonies at a sweat lodge or whatever. This sacred pipe that I have that belongs to all of you, the people, whenever you ask for blessing, I feel that and I come over to the hospitals or airport or homes and I try to do my best to say the good words that I've learned from my predecessors, my teachers across Indian country. So kind of in that way, I'm going to take a short break here and I'm going to have my wife transfer me over to that other site that you were talking about.
Yep. Well, I think for right now, we're going to stay on this link, and then Guthrie will let us all know when we're going to jump over to a new Zoom link. But
Okay.
right now, we do have a few questions. Thank you for sharing all
Sure.
of that. Like you said, all of our nations have their specific sacred sites. I am from Shiprock, so you describing the Shiprock rock or Tsebeta red rock with wings. It would be good to hear, other conversations on other sacred sites across the nation. So thank you for sharing what we have here in the Midwest, in Minnesota and South Dakota. But I'm gonna jump to our chat. There's a good amount of questions. One of them is from my cousin Ryan Martin there in Arizona. He says, "Yeah, for sharing. I am Dene from Nashush Bear people living in Arizona, but from northern New Mexico. I would like to understand how the Dakota and Lakota people have adapted to the rapid changes in their home landscapes, from climate change, political changes, new social congregations to teach their youth and preserve areas for the health of their Indigenous people. As Indigenous to the Southwest, I'm interested in knowing how other peoples are addressing these rapid changes in other homelands. Ahiha and many blessings.
I hope, here in Minnesota, as I mentioned, a lot of times when you live in a city, there's like 7 Ojibwe reservations here and 4 Dakota communities. And these are reservations. They are sites that Native people can live on and live from. But one of the things that I kind of do know is I do not live in the reservation setting, but I do go out there for my ceremonies, for the prayers that I need to make. We go to our sun dances, and I need to go to a sweat lodge ceremony for myself before I do anything out there. But like I was saying, health-wise, some of the many things that have sustained, I believe, this area is the Ojibways had a fish camp, they had a maple sugar camp, they had wild rice camp, and their way of living out there was fish, Ojibwe people. And also the lands that they had that were free at one time that all of a sudden were taken away by the treaties of the state in this particular area, Minnesota. So then there were some particular things that happened that were not very good from the government's side. But now eventually they have given all those rights back as far as fishing. They have given our fishing rights back. They have they never should have took them in the first place, but they just wanted to take them because they wanted to fish for free. And yet they didn't understand that this through treaty we have reservation lands here. And then here, Dakota country, they also are beginning to, like, say, for instance, the pipe. I know that a lot of the Southwest people, when you say your prayers, you use corn. And I was so good to see one of my friends give me some corn when him and I went out probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to say our thoughts for that day to the creator of all things. And we were out there, the only 2 out there in the state of Wisconsin, I think, were doing that. I'm sure other people were, but at that time, just me and him. And I learned some of these things that I really appreciate other tribes that we need to work together. I don't know how we could do that, but I know that currently they're now just now beginning to come back into like the Prairie Island area. The maple sugar camp is just now 2 years old. Of course, there's buffalo that they have a herd out there that they supply to their own people. I think that's been out there for like 15 years now. So that's really ongoing. So now the Shakopee area, they just now started that just this year. And then the Red Lake people, I think their buffalo herd is now being developed. I think this is on their 2nd year. And of course, they've all had all the other reservation kind of survival things that they did to survive because everybody becomes modern over here. But then the tribes are beginning to get very intelligent and smart with what it is that they need to give back to their people. And that's what's happening now. So I think we're restarting again. I mean, that's the way I kind of look at, and like for myself, I'm so glad that I have these questions I can answer because that's way in New Mexico, and it's kind of a hard thing when I live about maybe 9, 10 hours away from here, but I grew up on the land there. I grew up growing up in the Oglala area in Pine Ridge. We never had lights, so I learned how to chop wood, and I go get the wood and chop the wood and go haul the water. And I learned how to hunt earlier, and I ate off the land. All this we ate. I had dog, which is part of our ceremony. Squirrels. I had beaver. I had. That's what I grew up with. So when everybody has special things, special diets today, I didn't know anything about that at that time. I just ate whatever was given to me, what I hunted, what mom and dad and aunties and all our relatives cooked for all of us to eat. And we just ate. We never had any questions. We just were grateful that we ate. So hopefully I can say that we're to the gentleman from the Southwest that we are mending. We're gradually beginning to come around, but I'm not too sure in other areas how that's being done because I live in Minnesota right now, and I think that that's kind of what I can say that I like to eat all the old ancient things like the buffalo meat. I've learned how to do that, and I have a lot of wild rice here, and then we have maple sugar that we use, and of course we do live out of our stores that we get our food from, and our grandchildren are beginning to like what we eat too. So, kind of in that way, hopefully, I can give you somewhat of an answer to those questions. We're just mending, we're kind of reawakening again to the good things of life.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Guthrie, do we want to do one more question before we jump over? What do you think?
Yeah, why don't you hit that that top question there, and then we can
All
see if
right.
folks want to join us for after.
All right, so one more question here. Jerry, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. What cultural practice connected to the land do you hope people will return to in order to help Native people's health?
To help Native people's what?
Health.
Oh, okay. The only thing I can say is, as far as the land, which is what Prairie Island is doing, and that the Ojibwe people have done all this time. They, like I said, they've always done these things, but not enough people are doing them. Not enough people are, like, for instance, I'm doing the cultural part that is needed for some of our kids. They're beginning to kind of know some things about how we lived at one time, but it's a slow process. And last summer, I was involved in a culture camp, and we did a whole bunch of things out there, and kind of working with our kids, and kind of trying to educate them, the youth, with what we know. But I know that, for instance, myself, I don't know everything about survival that I could talk with them about language and history and culture and about songs and about how it was for me at one time and how I live today. I can share how it was, what it's like today. This is how I live. But I think that's probably the only way I can answer that question at this time, Marina.
Well, thank you, sir, for wonderful hour together. You hit all the marks and more for sure. We're gonna jump over here in just a minute. Jerry, don't take off, but we're gonna start sending folks over to the other Zoom link here in just a moment,
Okay.
so that the folks that want to continue to connect will be able to. I saw Karina just shared the link for the survey in the chat. Please do fill out the survey. That's been something that we've continued to look at throughout 23 and going into 24. So it really helps us think about what we want to do next and continue to engage with you guys.